Welcome back to another beginner-friendly acrylic painting. This time we're going to do a little seascape, so let's get started. We're going to use the same three colors we always use: phthalo blue, quinacridone magenta, and benzimidazzolone yellow. The first thing I'm going to do is just draw in my paint pen just a little bit of a composition. My horizon line is going to be there. And I'm going to have a land mass coming out like this. And we're going to have some flowers and whatnot in the foreground. Put my brush in the water and wipe it. And then I'm going to make a nice blue sky. I'm using my number 8 brush. And I'm going to start with some titanium white and a tiny bit of phthalo blue to make a really light blue. Watch it with that phthalo because it's very, very strong. You'll only need a little bit. So I've got a nice light blue sky going. Wipe my brush. And I'm going to have our water is going to be a little bit greener, so I'm going to grab a tiny bit of my benzimidazzolone yellow. Lots more titanium white. And a little bit more phthalo blue. Just so we have some contrast between the sky and our water. Our water just be a little bit greener. I'm also going to put some titanium white into that, right on the canvas, so it doesn't feel like my water is just flat. Have some titanium white. And you'll notice I'm making my brush strokes horizontal. That kind of mimics the way that the waves would come in. Get my horizon line more or less straight. You don't have to be too fussy with it. And just to give that water a little bit more flavor, I'm going to grab a little phthalo blue, tiny bit, just a tiny bit, and put a little bit of that dark phthalo blue in, wipe my brush, then come back with a little titanium white, just blend it in so it has a little bit of flavor there in the water, not just one flat color. We did that with our sky. We have a pretty flat color for our sky, so it's nice to have a little bit of variety in the water. Okay, now I'm going to turn this sideways because I want a nice straight horizon line, and a lot of times it's easier to do that sideways than it is vertical. I'm just going to make sure that's nice and straight. Now for my land here, I'm going to go to a kind of soft sandy color. So to make that, I'm going to go right into this turquoise that I was using, and I'm going to start with my benzimidazzolone yellow, bring some titanium white into that, get a nice green going. And now to mute that down and make it a nice brown, I'm going to grab a tiny bit of quin magenta, start very small, and that'll make it a nice kind of muted brown. Let's put a little more titanium white into that. It's not quite brown enough, it's still a little bit on the green side. There we go. That's more like it. And I want it quite a bit lighter, so I'm going to go over here and put my titanium white over here. And let's see how that looks. Still a little bit too green, so I'm going to grab a little bit more Quin Magenta. It's a little bit more rosy. That's more what I had in mind. Yeah. That's a little bit better. But, of course, I don't think I made enough of it. So we'll have to make some more. We'll see. I think I'm going to just pick up the rest of that color that we have there. Even though it's a little bit green, I think it's doing the job. And these areas down here in the foreground are going to have all of these wonderful flowers and things like that. So I'm just going to paint right down into that. Let's make this a little bit lighter back here. Great. Okay, wipe my brush. In the foreground, I'm going to have some flowers and things, so I want to build a nice kind of green area. I'm going to start with that Benzimidazolin yellow, put it right into this brown that I was working on, grab a little bit more of my phthalo, get a nice green going. And this is just going to serve as a background for our flowers. So I'm just going to paint down some shapes here. Doesn't really matter what they look like. It's just going to hold a space for us to create our flowers. Okay, we're going to set that aside and let it dry. If you've been with me in any of my other videos, you know that we always take about a 5-minute break to let things dry. Put it in front of a fan or a cool hair dryer, not hot, and pause your video, and we'll be back in 5 minutes for layer number 2. Okay, we're back. Now we're going to start doing some fun stuff with our beach here and putting some really cool, lively foliage on our beach. So let's start with a dark color. I'm going to make something along the lines of a purple. So I'll start over here with phthalo blue and a little Quin Magenta. Put some yellow into that so I get something that's almost black. Looks really dark. I'm going to paint some areas in here, some dark areas. It's going to be the under part of our beach grasses that we're going to have here. Wipe my brush. Now I want a really nice bright green, so I'm going to take the yellow, and I've already got some dark on my brush. Didn't wash it, I just wipe it. So take some yellow here, tiny bit of phthalo blue, make a green. I want the dark green, and then I also want some lighter green. So I'll put some white up here. Let's make quite a bit of that dark green. There we go. So I'm going to come back and go into these dark areas and pull up with my brush. Just so you would have like the beach grasses that grow in the dunes. Just pull those brush strokes up. Wipe my brush. Now I'm going to come back to a really bright green that's got a lot of yellow in it. Do the same thing, come back on top of those grasses. A little bit of yellow. Wipe my brush. A little bit of that dark. Bring it out just a little bit here. We have a little bit of that dark in other areas of our beach. A couple of tiny little seagrasses growing there. There we go, that gives our beach some interest. Now we'll have some fun stuff here with our grasses and our flowers. I'm going to go to a smaller brush, number 6. And I'm just going to start building up grasses here first. So I will come back to these greens. I'm going to make them quite a bit lighter. And just pull up with your brush. Make sure that your color has enough titanium white in it so that it will cover that green. You want to make sure that it covers the green that we have as our background. I'm going to take just a tiny bit of that dark color and put it into my green. So I have a little bit darker green as well. You want all of these shapes, you really want them to be lush. So get a lot of that kind of grass, beach grass growing there in the foreground. Get a lot of that, really make it lush. I'm going to go a little bit darker now. Really want that to look very full. So I'm going to get a little titanium white, a little yellow, go back into my green. Just as many greens as you can make. You're going to need lots and lots of them. A little bit darker now. Just a tiny bit of water on my brush. My brush was getting just a little bit dry. And just keep building that up. Till you really kind of obliterate those shapes in the background. But it looks really different if you don't have those shapes in the background. If you just have white canvas or something else, it really does look quite different. You really need them when you're doing this kind of foreground foliage. Okay. Now I'm going to let this dry for a couple of minutes actually. I'm going to let this dry for a couple of minutes and I'll be right back with our final touches. So pause your video for a couple of minutes, let this dry, and come right back. Okay, we're back. Now we're going to have some fun with these flowers in the foreground. So I'm going to clean my brush. And I'm also going to use my paint pens. I've got a green one here. I want a couple of nice long stems. I want one right here, another one right here, and let's have one here, a couple there like that that'll have little buds on them. I'm going to mix up a bright purple. So I've got some quin magenta, a little phthalo blue. Looks like I need some more titanium white. You can never have enough titanium white. Titanium white. And I think that's about right there. So we'll have some fun purple flowers coming off of that little stem that we created. Let's make those a little bit lighter. They need to be just a tiny bit lighter. A couple of nice purple flowers here. I think we could have one more over here, this way. Just big purple flowers there at the beach. Wipe my brush. We're going to have a couple of little buds right there, so I'm going to make a bright pink for these guys. And let's have a couple of daisy-like flowers in the foreground. So I'm going to take some white. I'm going to take my yellow paint pen and make the center of a flower. Then I'll take some titanium white and I'll just come out from the center. just use the paint brush itself to make those petals. And you might have to load up that titanium white more than once. You might have to come back and paint that twice because the titanium white sometimes doesn't cover. I'm going to just flesh that flower out a little bit. Okay, there's one flower, and let's give it a stem here. And maybe we'll do a small one, a really small one, down here, and maybe another one here. And then we'll do one more daisy-like flower over here. Just make sure you're pushing that paint from the center out. Whoops, got a little carried away there, didn't I? Okay, I'm going to wash my brush. I'm actually going to come back over that because that's a little bit too big for that to flower. So I'm going to fix that little guy right there. Like so. There we go, no harm. And let's give it a little stem to live on. And I might even come back with my paint pen and dress up the flower. Let's see. Sometimes you get a little bit better control with the paint pen. Just be sure that you are drawing on dry acrylic. Because if you use your paint pen into wet acrylic, you could ruin your paint pen. Let's have a couple more little tiny buds, and then that's it for our beach landscape. A couple of little tiny buds. Here, maybe here. Give some flavor to those grasses. Thanks for joining me. Be sure to join me again for another beginner-friendly acrylic painting. Be sure to hit that subscription button and that notification bell. And remember what I always say, keep painting.